My pleasure this afternoon to interview Emmanuel Cole, and I don't know if you've boned up a little bit on Emmanuel, but he's got an amazing following on Instagram with more than 100,000 people looking at his photography. And this photography, it tends to have a lot of urban landscape. The subject matter that Emmanuel's working with is often involving the landscape, particular kinds of urban environments. So it's going to be rather interesting, sort of, in that, looking at how he's explored this theme, why he explores this theme. But before I kind of get into the detailed question, Emmanuel, perhaps you could say a little bit about how you came to be working in photography.
I started photography through using an iPhone, so I basically got a phone when I started working and made a bit of money, bought a contract phone, which was an iPhone. And at the time I was working throughout the UK, so I was kind of exposed to loads of different scenery, which I kind of wasn't to prior to that. And in doing so, I kind of realized that the phone was quite good, not only for taking selfies, but for like getting those shots as well. So
this theme that you seem to have of really shooting a lot of environments and people in environments. I know there's some portraiture going on, but there's very clear sort of sense of space and of built spaces that you look at.
I feel like that's mainly due to like the London Underground. Like the London Underground definitely like shaped a lot of my work in terms of like the architecture, the lines, the symmetry. I just remember kind of when I was first exposed to using the London transport system and like frequently doing so, I'd always find random occasions, moments where it was just me in the tunnels and no other commuters. And I just kind of found that quite weird because every other time prior to that I was just used to those tunnels being filled up with loads of different people. So in those random moments where I just find myself in the random tunnels in the underground, whether it's at Waterloo or London Bridge or Southwark Station, all stations that have quite cool architecture, I started to take pictures of it with my phone. It started by just taking basic images of these tunnels, and then bit by bit I started to get addicted with making sure that the lines and the corners are meeting in my images and the symmetry, and then it just kind of went from there.
You have a very distinct eye for the sort of geometry of the space.
Yeah.
Sometimes you sort of turn buildings upside down and the spaces are really a sort of refreshing insight into how the space works that you don't normally see. Is that something which you've done almost intuitively, or did you really sort of study to think about how can I work this picture differently?
When I made the transition from using my iPhone to then taking pictures with my SLR, which was around about this time last year when I started taking pictures with my digital camera, that was when I started to kind of take it a bit seriously, I guess, and when my images really started to take shape, because first of all, when I was making that switch from mobile phone to camera, I realized that I became quite obsessed with the focal length the iPhone had, how wide the perspective was. So when I was switching and was going to make that first camera purchase, I wanted to make sure that the lens that I bought for my camera was going to be very similar to the iPhone, so I wasn't losing that natural focal length that I was used to seeing. So I invested in some wide-angle glass. And then I kind of realized that the glass was a lot wider than what I was used to seeing on my iPhone. So basically what that meant with all my shots on my SLR just ended up being a lot more wider. But then in the shot being a lot wider, I then had to work a lot more in trying to get the lines straighter. So once I started getting that, then
you always
things
work
changed.
with one lens?
Mainly, yeah. Mainly, so I use the 24mm 1.4, and that's what I use most of the times. But sometimes when I'm trying to get a bit more of a wider perspective, I have a 17mm that I use, and it just allows me to fit a bit more in the shot. And I like to feel like I'm telling an image with most of my pictures. So I seem to think the bigger the frame, the more that's in the frame, the more room to play with and make create some sort of emotion from the picture, I guess.
Yeah, let's talk about emotion in the picture, because there's a real sort of feeling, you have a sort of sense of surfaces and light and often reflections and things. And,
yeah.
How are you sort of, the images you choose to make and then the images you choose to edit as the image of the day or whatever you put up, what's guiding you in that?
It's mainly light. Like mainly it's about the quality of the light. I mean, I never really studied photography. Everything I've done is kind of learned through people I've met or people I follow on my Instagram, on social media. So I've kind of learned a lot just from people. So in terms of, I remember having a conversation once with a particular person who I thought he managed to just make all his images look really nice, and he was just telling me that he just makes sure that he shoots in the right light. So when I kind of got, when I became aware of what sunrise was and sunset and just kind of the golden hour, and then I realized, you know, harsh light and how it falls, it just meant that when I was taking certain shots, for example, my cityscape shots of London, I'd mainly do it during sunrise to make sure that I would catch a good light, and sometimes in the result of trying to find sunrise, you find fog, and if it's foggy, for me that's my favorite condition.
I saw somebody commenting on your pictures, sort of jealous of the fog that you always seem to get in your pictures.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people sometimes believe that I manage to just find fog all the time. It's not easy in London, but I remember one particular morning last year. Last year in February, so February 2014. I woke up one morning and that was kind of the morning that I created that image. But there was this fog that just kind of hung around for about maybe from like 7 a.m. till like 3 p.m. And I had to get to work for about 9:30, so I only had a few hours to kind of mess around in the fog. But it was just crazy, you know. Personally, I just feel, you know, when I'm in fog, it just feels like every moment is like cinema. So it doesn't really matter which frame when I decide to take that picture, I just feel like, yeah, so I just love shooting in the right conditions, really.
The previous session, Sue Butcher was talking about social media, and it's a very nice connection through here because you've got this amazing following, and you talked about following other people, but you've got you're following a few hundred at most maybe on Instagram, but you've got more than 100,000 people following you. Yeah. How does that happen? How did it happen for you?
I don't know, honestly. It's crazy because I only got on Instagram maybe 3 years ago. So I feel like maybe because most people I know, I've been on the app for a lot longer than them. So I feel like that's probably what it is. But at the same time, I also realized that now in terms of urban photography, like in London, a lot of people from all over the world kind of look at my Instagram feed for kind of that person in London to connect with. So I guess it's just mainly the following has grown through just really interacting with people and like not just putting my pictures on Instagram. I kind of make an effort to kind of communicate with people, like answer people's questions, and I guess in doing so it's kind of meant that people kind of really understand what I'm about, and I don't know, maybe people like the work as well. So yeah, I don't know, but I don't know how the numbers gone so high, personally.
How has the work developed over the sort of 2 or 3 years you've been getting really very serious on it?
It's developed a lot, really, because the thing with Instagram is that you're forced to look at work all the time. I mean, I personally look at my Instagram feed multiple times in a day, and it's kind of like a source of inspiration because people I follow put pictures up, and without even knowing it, I look at that picture maybe for a second or two, but it's kind of inspiration in some sort of a way. And yeah, it just keeps my mind kind of, I guess, filled with good imagery in that respect.
Technically, how do you think maybe that work's moved forward? Obviously, you've changed camera.
I'd say the changing camera really had an effect because around about May last year, I went to New York for the first time ever, and the whole purpose of going there was just to kind of take pictures. But New York was the place where I was really forced to make that shift and put my phone to the side and kind of use my camera more, because I just thought, why am I on holiday using a little phone when I have this big camera that I'm kind of afraid to use so much? So I kind of put the phone to the side, started messing with my camera, but in doing so I realized that I didn't really even know how to use the camera, and I couldn't create certain images that I could do on my phone with my camera. But when I left New York and came back to London after like a couple of weeks, that trip gave me the confidence to kind of quit my job and make this my job. So when I then decided to make this my job, I then kind of thought, what kind of photography am I going to specialize in? And prior to the whole New York trip, I used to work in a company where I was a deputy manager working with fundraising companies, charity, sorry. So helping charities to raise money, and I used to work with people quite a lot. So I thought, because I'm interested in people, why not really focus on portraits? And now, although I'm quite known for the street work and the cityscape and landscapes, it's mainly portrait work that kind of pays me financially and that I probably enjoy a bit more. So yeah, I guess.
You enjoy it because you're actually working with people.
Yeah, and the challenge of working with people, and the fact that I then have the opportunity to like direct. You know, I can create make a shot, create that shot completely. You know, make the person pose in a certain way, stand in a certain way, put that person, you know, and that directing is something I really enjoy. I guess naturally, I didn't realize that I was filled with that many ideas in terms of like directing, but.
You must have been in lots of interesting spaces. You've made choices to go and choose particular places to photograph from. What architecture and buildings do you find are really work well?
I mean, it was mainly kind of coming into Liverpool Street, as you probably do, being a Londoner, and just kind of seeing all of the Gherkin, the Heron Tower, and all of those buildings, and just wanting to be in the sky with them somehow. I mean. As crazy as it sounds, I just really wanted to get that aerial perspective. And I guess that might have come from my upbringing when I was younger, because when I was younger, I lived for about 11 years of my first 11 years was spent in like a 21-floor tower block, where I lived on like the 19th floor. So I realized, I always visualize, when I think back to my childhood, I remember kind of being able to just look out the window and see all of that side of East London, and not really, I mean, now when I look back at it, I realize that perspective was very rare and unique for me because of me living in that block, but nobody else living in that block would have had the opportunity to kind of see those views. So I feel like those visions from a child was kind of like really...
It's quite natural for you to have that big view.
Yeah.
Most people don't have very often. So.
Yeah, I mean, my block was also based right next to my primary school, so I just used to imagine like days where I'd maybe be ill at home with chickenpox and looking out into the playground and seeing all the small figures, which were children, like running around in the playground, and just having those sorts of views when I was younger. I mean, they stick with me like quite strongly till now, and I guess bit by bit, starting off with the London Underground and then diving into street photography, and now it's become more street. I call it cityscape, mainly like viewing the city and trying to capture the city's energy in one picture.
To get the access to places, are they all public spaces, or do you have to get into private spaces?
I mean, yeah, mainly public spaces. So like I started going into like the Heron Tower just to go up there with a Shard for the viewing platform, but then bit by bit I just realized that I kind of flicked back into my childhood and realized that I used to get a lot of my views from my own tower block. So I then realized that I had so many friends who still lived in tower blocks in different parts of London. So from time to time I'd communicate with them and say, let's meet up for whatever, have a chat or catch up. And really I'm just trying to get their flat for a little bit of sunset. But yeah, just having friends in different places, I realize it's helpful. It's mainly friends that help me to get the higher perspectives.
Is there a dream place that you'd like to get up, a dream building or subject matter?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to just have. As much as I've captured the city of London from many different angles and perspectives. Like I felt like the helicopter perspective of London was going to be one that was the dream perspective. But once I had it, I realized that I still need something else.
Too far up.
Yeah, no, it's not even too far up. It's up, but I don't think many helicopter companies in London have flight permissions to do flights during sunset. So that's the dream, like to have a flight over London during like sunrise or sunset. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'm just going to throw it out to anybody else who wants to ask a question. I've been asking them all. No? You over there. John, any other cities
that I'd like to visit? Yeah, I really want to visit Hong Kong, probably because of the architecture there. Yeah, I just realized that I've seen so many pictures of the city on Instagram and social media, but I just like to put my own perspective onto the city, especially if the city has and gets a lot of what I like. So the light is very nice there sometimes. It's a bit too intense and humid, I've heard, but I'm sure I'll put up with it in order to get good pictures, and just the fact that it's very easy there to access tall buildings and get high views. yeah, it's like a concrete jungle. I think that's why I like New York so much, because it's like I love the big city life. I grew up in London, so I appreciated New York quite a lot, and I feel like Hong Kong would probably have a similar vibe.
Concrete or brick? What's better?
I don't know. Brick, maybe, yeah.
Brick?
Yeah.
The sponsors of the exhibition over there, Wienerberger, they would appreciate that.
Yeah?
They're brick people. Question here. What kind of smartphone is good for photographs? Yeah?
Personally, I have to stay true to the phone that I've always used, which is the iPhone. I started off using the iPhone 4, and I feel like it doesn't really matter which phone you use. The whole point of the phone is just having a very quick and easy device to take those pictures. So I could say a phone that's very pricey, but I could also say a phone that's really cheap. I feel like the iPhone 5S is like perfect for having a phone to take pictures with. The quality you get from that, I mean, I've printed images from my iPhone that have come up very big, like, and it's cheap as well, like compared to the new one. So, but if you want to go for the 6 and the 6 Plus, I'm sure they're nice.
Got commercial work from your Instagram feed?
Yeah, a little bit. Like it's kind of crazy because I still. This day and age that we live in is a bit crazy, especially from my perspective, because when I left my job to do this other job, I realized that I didn't really know which company I wanted to reach out with and work for or work with. So I knew that in order to kind of get some money, I'd either have to have a company approach me or I'd have to realize what I wanted to do. But luckily for me, the first company I ever did work with was Levi's. They approached me for a small, like, biking. They were making jeans for people that ride bikes, so like very stretchy and kind of easy to ride around in. So they approached me, and I did like a 10-photo series for them of a particular person who rides their bike all over London, and that was crazy because, I mean, Levi's was like a company I purchased their jeans and stuff, you know. So for them to kind of reach out to me and to work I didn't even know what an invoice was before they approached me, you know. So yeah, that happened, and then I worked with Adidas straight after Levi's, like 2 months after, and again, like that was crazy as well. But I did work with the rugby team department and Adidas Running to help promote running. And yeah, in terms of clients that I'm proud of in that respect, yeah, those two. Acco, yeah, and Acco.
Yes. So yes, I mean, hopefully we're going to do some interesting things. I mean, I'm hoping Peter's going to get you to do some interesting stuff, and maybe we can exhibit at the building centre one day. So that would be great.
Yeah.
So that's the thing to do. Got some old buildings as well. Is there particular spaces that you think are just fantastic? This is London at its best.
Oh, I don't know. I remember whenever I was getting up to take pictures, I'd naturally gravitate towards Canary Wharf. Now that's got to have something to do with the modern feel of the area. So I feel like naturally I gravitate towards the areas with the modern feel. But in terms of like places with that proper London vibe, my favorite areas to walk around and take pictures is like Holborn.
Holborn, yeah.
Yeah, Holborn. London Bridge, like I love London Bridge, and Moorgate, that area, Moorgate Bank, that area, just love it. I just think like the streets are. I think that's another thing that Instagram did for me, because I found out that like around about 56% of my following on Instagram was from the States. It kind of made me realize that the people from the States were obviously paying me more attention. But then I also found out in my time in the States that their love for London is massive. Like they love London so much. So it just kind of made me, especially the few of my friends who are also from the States made it to the UK in January, and just the way how they were taking the city and just amazed by things that I take fascination to, but they were showing it way too much love. Just made me kind of fall in love with London a bit more. So it's like now because now I do a lot of shoots for, so like fashion shoots for companies' clothing, so to help release like spring, summer, winter looks. But because of my knowledge and kind of locations in London, a lot of those companies kind of tend to approach me. So, and it's quite interesting work to do, but I now know where to kind of take these shoots and these what locations to bring to them. which is kind of the area that I mentioned to you, especially Holborn. Yeah.
So do you do those shoots just on the fly, as it were, in the street, or do you have to clear spaces?
No, it's not even like I don't. That's why I thought sometimes, like even when I was working with Adidas, and they were kind of trying to, they didn't understand that I didn't need their help with anything. Like I just need them to tell me what they need me to do, and I'll make it happen, because it's all kind of just improvising. You know, you just got to make it happen and work and play with the streets and get, you know, just incorporate with what's around you, really. So yeah.
So is there a dream client? You know, you started off with some amazing quality of clients. I mean, Levi's, Adidas, Akka. I mean, you've got good people. So is there somebody you think, well, I'd love to work, you know, doing that kind of? Is there a fashion client? Or what's...
This is the tricky thing. Like, I still feel like I struggle sometimes, and I feel like, you know, maybe looking up to companies like Levi's and Adidas and working with them, and not like I've lost any kind of feeling for these companies in the process of working with them, but it's just kind of made me feel a little bit different towards kind of approaching that side of photography. I honestly don't know what the dream company is. Like, I just want to be able to keep producing more art, basically, yeah, and just evolve
it like a
this.
daily thing you do for yourself? Every day do you get up and think, I'm going to shoot something? And,
Yeah, like every day. It's like an everyday thing, every day, literally. I mean, when I used to work like 55 plus hours a week, I'd still find time every day to take pictures, whether it was before work or after work. But I realized that it kind of affects my mood if I used to go to work without taking pictures and just having that time to myself, because taking pictures is almost like, it's a very therapeutic process for me. Like, it's that time to just kind of spend time with myself and just kind of walk through the streets. It's not really a rush process, you know. I love shooting Sunday mornings because there's no one around in London. It's just me and London being empty. So yeah, the whole shooting is more than just taking pictures. It's more of kind of a mind state thing. It's really how I kind of get myself like pumped up and like just brain flowing for the day. And I realize the more I don't do it in the morning, the worse it is. So yeah.
I'd like to thank Emmanuel Cole for giving some insights, and I hope we all add ourselves to 110,000 and spread the word. So thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you. Thank you.